Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to our 2021 Open Banking and Digital Financial Services FBAA eSummit series. That's a long name. Session number 2 here in New South Wales and ACT. I'm Nick Wormald, the New South Wales and ACT State President for the FBAA, and I'll be your MC today. So let's get started with today's session. We've got a little bit of housekeeping to get through here. So just to let you know, there's 1.5 CPD hours allocated to each eSummit session. So you'll receive this code and a survey at the end of the summit. And if you could please remember to fill out that survey following, because that helps us to improve these sessions for you. We'd also like to thank our sponsors for their support. It's been a tough few years on and off for us all and everyone out there. And we just thank you for the continued work to our sponsors. We're all working closely trying to figure out the best way to educate everyone during this time. You'll get their contact details in a follow-up email after today's session. So for FBAA members, don't forget that you can receive 10% off your membership every time that you refer a new member to the FBAA. If they join, you get 10% off your membership. There's also a FBAA app that you can download, which gives you updates, information, webinars, all the information and tools that you need. Also, on our website, which has been updated, there's been a revamp to the tools and resources area on the website. So jump on there and have a look, because it's really valuable stuff to help you run your business. The FBAA broker support program is still available for anyone that needs access. We've added a BID, Best Interest Duty Digital Educational and Knowledge Testing course, information for those who still need to complete it. And continue to update that section with many measures to assist you. You will also find today's agenda in a handout in the Zoom chat box if you need the agenda. Okay, to commence today's session, we'll be learning about embracing digital teams, building capacity and setting your business up to scale with affordable staff. So I'd like to welcome Caitlin Stewart, who will be taking us through this segment.
Thank you so much, Nick. Do appreciate it. Let me just share my screen here. There we go. Good morning, everybody. My name is Caitlin Stewart. I am the BDM here for financial services at Affordable Staff. Coming to you from lockdown in Melbourne, so I share your pain, everybody, and big shout out to those parents out there who are also trying to manage working from home as well as homeschooling your kids. So who are Affordable Staff? Well, we help brokers deal with the absolute chaos that is admin with the assistance of virtual assistants. Today, I'm going to have a chat through some of the common themes that I'm seeing in my clients or brokers that I'm speaking to, some of the issues that they're dealing with. As we all know, the industry is very busy at the moment. So a lot of brokers are working in excess of 10 hours every day, some 16, 7 days a week. So the weekends are spent working on the business and not much time for personal life. A lot of the time, some important admin and compliance is being pushed back until the last minute, which obviously kicks on and creates further stress. And many brokers I'm hearing are actually limited in being able to take on new clients or referral partners, simply just because they don't have the time. In addition, some of their existing clients are being underserviced and they're moving their business away. I'm seeing in most cases capacity for a lot of sole operators or small offices is just maxed out, so that growth is not coming through. As well as all of these issues above, there is also the case of what's going on in the economy, a lot of uncertainty, and some are just not entirely sure if they can actually afford to hire permanent staff. Capacity is a big thing, and it's really important to understand what is your personal capacity. You know, if you're working these long days, just trying to push everything out, it is not sustainable at all. In order to grow sustainably, you need to understand what is your personal capacity. A really good place to start is to just write down what tasks you're doing, especially if you're doing it all yourself. What could you easily delegate down to somebody else? Think about it as the $1 tasks. You shouldn't be doing those yourself. You should be giving those to somebody else. Also important to understand the things that you're doing day to day, are they actually making you any money, or are they just taking time away from your return on investment activities? Quick shout out to the team at the 10X Group. So they've actually got a really fantastic calculator, sustainable capacity calculator that you can jump on and complete for free on that link there. And you just plug in how much time you're spending in each task, how many clients you want to see, and that'll actually let you know whether or not you're able to sustainably take on those clients as well too. If you're at capacity, it's very much time to make a plan. So if you're considering hiring staff members, but not too sure about whether or not you can afford it, or wanting to have a permanent solution, definitely have a chat to us. So we provide virtual assistants that can handle your low value, time consuming tasks so that you can focus on working on your business rather than just in the business. We anticipate that you could save anywhere from 10 to 20 hours per deal by delegating your admin to a dedicated resource located in the Philippines. That will then allow you, or if you've got local team members, to focus on those higher return on investment activities. We would hope too that you'd be able to build more individual capacity for your business and also your personal life as a happy wife, happy life, but also being able to take on more clients as well too. So the way that we work is it is a full-time dedicated support person. They're allocated to you and only you. So it's another team member just sitting in a different office. It's a simple way to think about it. Here are a couple of tasks, or the top 10 tasks that we find many of our clients are outsourcing to their virtual assistants. A lot of these are very process driven. So document collection, making sure they're all named correctly, CRM data entry, email tracking, apply online, following up submissions when they're ready for settlement, all of that sort of stuff, as well as a lot of post-settlement stuff as well too. So we're not just loan processors. Think about it as, you know, somebody, general admin who can really take on whatever you need them to take on for you. Just to round out, I have a couple of case studies to, you know, get you thinking about it. So the first one here is broker Kim. She was averaging $1.5 million a month in settlements, operating as a solo broker, was doing everything herself. And she was actually at the point where she was turning away leads due to the capacity. In November 2020, she hired a virtual assistant through Affordable Staff, and very quickly, within 2 months, her settled volumes had increased to an average of $4 million as Kim had time to focus on new clients and referral partners. And that's a big thing that she really talks about, is how much time she can now spend getting out there and building and doing that business development. In the last couple of months as well too, she's really been able to take advantage, obviously, of the busy industry, but also having that additional support, and has averaged $6 million in settlements. And she's now actually just about to pull the trigger on bringing another team member on board to help round out that team. Second case study here is Peter. So Peter had an office. He was a principal broker, averaging $3 million a month and operating with one full-time in-house admin, and had also just hired a new to industry broker as well too. Recognizing that the team needed some additional support with the new broker, he hired a virtual assistant through Affordable Staff in January of this year to support the team. Checked in with Peter a couple of weeks ago, and volumes have more than doubled. So settlements are now at averaging $8 million per month. And something that really shines through in this particular case study is the capacity. So Peter's actually been able to drop down to 4 days a week, only working 8 hours a day, in order to enjoy spending time with his growing family. Has quite a few grandbabies on the way, and a few that have just recently been born as well too, and still obviously enjoying those increased settlement volumes as well. That's it from me. If you would like to learn more, have a sit down, have a chat, go through our process start to finish, understand how we can help you, then please reach out today. My calendar is just opened up, so got plenty of time, excuse me, to sit down and understand your needs and see how we can actually help you there. You can book a meeting with me directly or just simply take a screenshot. There's my phone number, my email address, and we can have a chat further. Thanks so much.
Great, thanks, Caitlin. Wonderful business that you have there, and that's incredibly important to have help in your business if you don't already. So reach out to Caitlin. Right, next up we have. Just wanted to remind everyone, if you have a big vessel, make sure you've got water with you. Drink plenty of it. We're all standing around a lot at the moment in lockdown in various states.
Thanks for coming in. We'll talk soon. Yeah, sounds good.
Just make sure that we're that you're all drinking water and stretching as well. So Leah will show us how to stretch a little bit later. Okay, so next up, I'd like to introduce the panelists. So we have Bluestone, Speedy Finance, Trailbook Loans, and Prosper. Leah Renwick will be emceeing the panel, and that's where we've learned all the stretching as well at the end of that. So take it away, Leah.
I don't know about the stretching, Nick, but look, I'm sure we can help everybody out with it. And as Nicolette said the other day, I hope we're all practicing our 2 pieces of fruit per day. Personally, for me, it's Friday. You can't see my mug because of my purple screen, but I'm actually on the coffees. So it has been a massive week. We were down in Melbourne just prior to the lockdown. It's okay. I'm categorically COVID-free, having 2 tests in 2 states this week. But yeah, it's been a big week. But enough about me and what I'm doing, guys. I'm here to facilitate this morning's panel for you. And as we said, thank you to our team. I hope they've all got their cameras and they're ready to go. It's going to be a cracking morning for us. So guys, I'm going to start with the first question. What is it about your product that sets you apart from the other lenders that play in the space? So Coops, I'm going to start with you.
Hey, thanks, Leah. Yeah, so with Speedy Finance, we're a little bit different in the fact that we do more short-term commercial lending against property. So we're not looking at bank statements or credit files or things like that. Just to put it simply, we're looking at 3 things. That's the loan purpose, the exit, and having a property that fits within LVR criteria.
Perfect. And Benny Howe from Prosper, good morning. What is it that separates Prosper in this space from other lenders?
Look, there's probably, I can probably talk all day to that, but I guess the biggest, differentials for us is that we've been around the longest. So we have quite a large team which really focuses on that customer experience, ensuring that, when a broker actually refers us a customer, we treat them with the same amount of respect and the same amount of service that you would, because we understand that it's a reciprocal relationship. So if we treat your customers bad, then it doesn't just reflect on us, it also reflects on the broker. We don't want that to happen as well. So, but in terms of speed, we're basically the fastest in this space. So we put out to market that we can settle loans within 24 hours, but realistically, it's within 2 to 3 hours. And even in this, the current lockdown, the circumstances now, we're still operating as business as usual, which is pretty cool. So that's also a really big plus. Plus, we've got a really good BDM team. Which is always nice to say as a BDM, isn't it? But we've got a really good team here. So in terms of that, like sort of what Caitlin just mentioned before in her presentation, we can act as like an extension of your business. So if you want to try and save time, well, you need to focus on other things, particularly in the resi space, because obviously things take quite a while. You can call us up, workshop a scenario. We can basically tell you, give you some indication or set an expectation of whether it's going to happen or where it's going to sit. And literally take all the work from you. So you can literally just send us the name and a number. We do all the work for you.
Fantastic, Benny. And Jackie, over at Bluestone side of things, what is it that separates Bluestone in today's market from the other lenders?
Yeah, look, well, I'm your BDM, so no matter which aggregator you fit under in the ACT area, I look after you all. And then I'm actually in the ACT pre-COVID, twice a month. So love catching up with you all you guys. But I think most importantly is we don't see CR. That's a big one at the moment. No credit scoring and no DTI. so no matter what product. Unlimited debt consolidation. So I think my record was 18 unsecured debt. That fit in our, yeah, that actually fit in our prime space. That rate was 244, as long as it didn't exceed over 100,000. And we only needed one statement just to show that it was in perfect conduct, no CCR. So it was quite good. And also, no matter what LVR that you have in your prime space, so up to 90%, we don't have any risk fee or any LMI fees.
Fantastic. Thanks for that quick update there, Jackie. Surinder, I'm pretty sure you're in the background for me this morning. I've got a black logo happening, so I can't see your smiling face. But what is it with Trailbook loans that separates you from other companies out there that finance Trailbooks?
Yeah, thanks, Leah. I am here. There's no camera this morning for a reason. We'll talk about that later. So we're different because we will lend to mortgage brokers secured against their trail income, and we'll lend to financial planners secured against their ongoing revenue streams, and real estate agents against their property management streams. So we don't look to take property security. Everything that we do is business purpose. So we don't mind if it's tax debt, partner breakup, acquisition. We don't really mind what the money's used for, provided it's outside of NCCP. And really, really simple and user-friendly. So no LVRs or valuations or the like, just a maximum loan of 1.5 times the recurring revenue.
Perfect. We like to keep it simple as well by the sound of it over there, Surinder. So thank you very much for that quick update. So guys, I'm going to bounce around some scenarios at the moment, and we're just going to talk it through with each of you to see if it does fit your lending panel, and if it is something that as lending companies you will consider. So Jackie, I do want to start with you because there is something exciting that I've heard whispers in the marketplace that Bluestone have on board with them now, and potentially for Sydney that's a 90% no LMI product. I'm not sure if the 90% holds in Canberra or not. Can you give us some information around that?
Yeah, sure. So our rate just dropped 2 days ago. So 90%, no LMI, no risk fee, down to 329. The beauty about this product, guys, is that the loan amount, depending on, because we are, you know, postcode restricted, depending on where that location is, that loan amount could be $1,250,000. So that's a cracker product. Now, we are, when you do use our acceptable security location calculator, most of Canberra is at 85, but guys, I have been screaming and pumping my chest with James Angus, and I actually even conducted a report and demographics and who, you know, with what Canberra is all about. So we are at 85, but we are looking at, watch this space, you know, to 90%, hopefully soon.
We do lay the fingers crossed on that one, Jackie, and it's a definite, it's a standout product there. And at the 3.89 is the reduced rate that you guys have come to.
354, and now we've reduced, yeah, 329. And the beauty about that is also is that there's no, in that product as well, no DTI, no credit scoring, no CCR. So no ongoing fees, guys, as well. So it's your 120 settlement fee, 400 legals, 590 app. That's it.
Sounds like the dream.
All loans as well, guys. Like I get a lot of brokers that used to use mum and dad's property, as long as it's owner occupied, order an upfront val with myself, free of charge, and happy to assist you guys and see what it comes in at, and potentially refinancing that dollar for dollar and getting mum and dad off the guarantor loan.
Absolutely brilliant stuff coming out from Bluestone. So guys, on the rest of the panel, I've got a bit of a tricky one that came across my desk, and it was for a startup company that had been trading for about 6 months. They already have a high income of over 100,000. Is there a maximum amount that they could lend with you, and what documents would you require to facilitate that particular loan? Benny Howell, I'm going to bounce it to Prosper first.
Yeah, certainly, Leah. So look, in terms of the maximum amount, the first thing that I want to try and, what we'd want to try and find out is if it's actually a startup company for one, or if it's actually something that a business that has been purchased by another director, because that actually does change things. So if there is, for example, a previous ABN that we can obviously track continuity, that actually changes things. But look, realistically, if it's an absolute fresh startup and has been trading for 6 months, that's our minimum trading time for an ABN. the maximum that we would generally do is about 25K. And that's due to the fact that it's a brand new business. And obviously we're in the unsecured space. So literally we don't take any security against any asset, any vehicles or anything like that. It's literally director guarantees. So for an absolutely fresh business that's just 6 months, it would be basically a max of 25K. So irrespective if they've got 100K going through, would that be like 100K on average, Leah? Would that be like an annual sort of?
I would say it's on average. Having only traded for 6 months, they haven't really gone to the annual turnover or been able to get to that mark yet, but they're averaging out at the moment at about 100,000.
Yeah, so I would say for us, 25K is probably going to be the max there, and that's really just due to that time trading. The other piece as well is that at the end of the day, we need to obviously check for servicing too. So even though that they have a high income of 100K, their actual expenses could be it's absorbent as well because it's a brand new business, with staffing costs and all that sort of thing. So that also comes into it. But in terms of if everything else is absolutely perfect, you're probably looking at about a 25K max, I reckon.
And that's a great cash injection for any business, even at the 25K at that 6 month mark.
Correct.
So Coops, down to you at Speedy. Is this a deal that Speedy would be able to consider? And if so, what's your loan amount sitting around it?
Yeah, so with this one, because we don't have a minimum time in business, they can be registered for 1 day even. Definitely something that we would look at. In terms of the loan amount, that would fall into kind of the exit strategy and the LVR on the property. So as long as it fits within typically 75–80% LVR, that would determine the maximum loan amount. But at the same time, we're not going to want to do $1 million for a company that's turning over 100K in the first 6 months. So it'd probably be, we would look at just what the company could service and what the exit is. If it's a strong exit, or if they're looking at paying with cash flow from the business, then it would be a reduced amount. But we just take a look at that. In terms of the documents, pretty simple: application form, rates notice, mortgage statement, and director's ID.
Perfect. So guys, going into the second one, I've got Bill Smith, who's managed a restaurant for over 15 years, but he's decided to go out on his own and buy his own business, doing exactly the same thing that he was doing already. He needs finance for fixtures and fittings. Is this something you can look at, or is there another type of finance that you could potentially offer him? Coops, I'll start down with you.
Yep. So again, with Speedy, we don't have a minimum time of business. So if he's gone out on his own, we could still look at funding him, so long as he has property he can use. For a scenario like this, we'd probably just set him up on an interest-only product, allowing him to get the business, trading and get it up on its feet, and then look at the exit being refinanced into either a P&I loan or something like that once he's had his ABN for 6 to 12 months.
Perfect. Benny, up to you. Is it a deal that you could have a look at, although he's, coming from working for someone in a restaurant to buying his own? Is that still something Prosper can consider?
No, not at this stage. So ultimately we need to have that. So we can't actually help with that if it's that particular scenario where someone's working in the industry, got lots of experience purchasing their first business. We need to have that connection between the director and that business. So we need, in this circumstance, sort of what I mentioned before, if this particular fellow's gone out and purchased his own restaurant, let's say it's an existing business. Let's say this other restaurant he's purchased has been running for, I don't know, let's say 5–10 years. He just needs to run that business for a bare minimum of 3 months before we can look at it. And in terms of like the use of funds, I mean, we can fund for any worthwhile business purpose. So in terms of fixtures, fittings, lease payments, deposits, anything, it doesn't really matter. As long as it's a worthwhile business purpose, it's fine. But in terms of that connection between the director and the business, there needs to be at least 3 months if it's an existing purchase.
Perfect. And Jackie, over to you at Bluestone side of things. Are you able to do cash out for people to do things like fixtures and fittings within their businesses?
Yeah, so our maximum cash out in our full doc is 500 and in our alt doc 200, as long as we've got a clear understanding what those funds are being used for. So, but that's fine if it's business purpose, that's not a problem. Also, business debt against resi security, we can still consider in our prime product.
Perfect. So guys, it's a wonderful time of year, and Jackie, I'll stay with you, where some people walk themselves into having some ATO debt. Yes. Is this something that you'll have a consideration to finance? And if so, is there a maximum lending amount for ATO debt?
No, so it depends on the security. So at this time of year, it's a perfect question because the phone's running hot. Will you do ATO debt? The question is, yes, we will. And that is our near prime product, and it could still have a 3 potentially in front of that product with a small risk fee depending on the LVR. So it purely depends on where the LVR, you know, because the higher the LVR, the lower the loan, and the lower the LVR, the higher loan amount. And that's the limit there.
Perfect. Benny, is it something that Prosper will consider?
Yeah, absolutely. It does depend on, you know, how much ATO debt they have compared to their monthly turnover. But and I won't go into too much detail there. But it's that's a business use of funds. We actually see a lot of businesses looking at paying up their ATO debt and getting additional working capital for other reasons. And in a lot of circumstances, if, for example, you're a resi broker, you're trying to do an SME mortgage or something like that, and they do have ATO debt, you can bring it to us, see if we can clear that debt out and make way for that other facility you're trying to place. So yeah, it's absolutely something that we can do, and it's, you know, business use of funds, very easy to do. Yeah, no problem.
Perfect. Surinder, over at Trailbook loan side of things, is it a situation where somebody could cash out their trail with you at the moment and use those funds to pay out ATO debt?
100%, Leah. We love ATO debt. 90-odd% of brokers are small businesses in their own right. So they've got the same constraints that a lot of other small businesses throughout Australia do through the lockdowns and cash management and the rest. So we don't have a problem at all. The only restriction we put on ATO debt, which isn't really a restriction, is come settlement, we will make sure that we pay the funds directly to the ATO to clear the balance. We won't give it to the broker or the planner or the real estate agent to pay it themselves.
Perfect. And keep it down to Speedy, ATO debt. How are we sitting with you guys?
Yeah, same with Speedy. We'll definitely look at some finance to pay out ATO debt. In terms of the amount, there's no cap on that. It just falls in line with, well, like I said earlier, the loan purpose, exit, and then the LVR of the property fitting within, you know, around that 80% mark.
Okay, and I do want to ask all of you a really quick question on that as well, and it's just been bounced up to me. With the ATO debt side of things, is it something that you will want to pay directly to the ATO, or will you give the client the funds and make it the client's, I suppose, responsibility to pay those funds to the ATO? Benny, I will start with you.
Yes, look, generally, if it's a specific use of funds, we want to pay the ATO debt. But you'll see that there's a lot of businesses that want to pay ATO debt will also want additional funds for something else as well. So we essentially would split that up.
Perfect. Jackie, from your side of things at Bluestone, do you pay the ATO directly, or do the funds go to the client to pay the ATO?
We would pay the ATO. We would pay the ATO directly.
Perfect. Coops?
Yeah, same as Prosper. Speedy would pay the ATO directly, and then if there was any other funds that the client was after in hand for a different purpose, we just split it. But we would pay ATO directly, yes. Perfect.
And Surinder, for you?
100% to the ATO. I think as lenders, nothing scares any of us more than the ATO.
I think I'll agree with you there. Even as a consumer, nothing scares me more than the ATO. So guys, on this one as well, I'm going to bounce a rather large scenario to you. It's got quite a few variables to it. Is there anybody on today's panel that can lend for the following? And if so, could you let us know the maximum LVR and loan amounts? And the first one is, and we'll do this by show of hands, and Surinder, I know with this one as well, we can park you because I have another question for you shortly. So for the rest of the panel, can anybody lend for a hobby farm? We've got Cooper. Coops, can you let me know LVRs and also what kind of loan amounts we're looking at for a hobby farm?
Yeah, so again, with the hobby farm, it depends. If it's kind of a very rural one, we'll be looking at more the 50% LVR type area, or closer it gets to more metro areas, you can slightly bump it up to around 60%, 65% sometimes. In terms of amount, just depends on the purpose and what the exit is. So as long as it fits under that LVR, we can usually lend up to there as long as they have an exit on how they're going to repay it.
Perfect. Benny, I've seen you come off mute then for a minute. How are we going up there at Prosper's side of things?
Yeah, look, I think, look, in terms of the industry, because we look at obviously industry, time and trade, all sorts of things. Look, in terms of it being a hobby farm, it's agriculture. We've actually just opened up to agriculture in terms of an industry, but obviously we don't look at LVR or that sort of thing. But in terms of we we want to look at the lending criteria first. So we obviously want to make sure that they've been trading for at least 6 months. They have enough sort of deposits of income coming through the bank statement sheets month, that sort of thing. So that should be doable as long as they fit lending criteria.
Perfect. And we got a definite shake of the head from Jackie up the top. So it's a no from Bluestone on that one. So guys, what about an Airbnb? Because they've seemed to become pretty popular lately, especially with people not traveling. We've got more deposits to buy things and do strange things with our money. How are we placed with people wanting to buy an Airbnb?
We can take on the rental. So not a lot of brokers know that. So the rental income of Airbnb per se, that's something look, at the end of the day, when you're purchasing that, how are we going to look at potential rental income for investment as well? So I think, and I'm happy to get back to you, I think that would be very case by case on that one, depending on servicing, but I don't think that we'd like to take that on as security per se, being an investment, but happy to look at that. If you do get something like that, send it to me via email. Because I know we take the Airbnb income, but yeah, that's a good question. I've not had one of those.
Excellent. And for Coops and Ben, let me just twist that a little bit. If it was a company purchasing an Airbnb, how would we be placed with that? You can pay this.
We could definitely look at purchasing it. We'd need either additional property or maybe a 20% deposit. But for us, we're more short-term type lenders, so it'd be more a bridge in between waiting for a refinance or something like that, or a purchase through a bank or Bluestone or something like that. But we could definitely do a short-term bridge to purchase it.
Fantastic, Benny. If it was a business buying an Airbnb.
Look, you probably wouldn't want to bring it to someone like us anyway, just purely for the fact of the loan amounts, because we basically just go up to $500,000, right? And that's the top end of the scale. And we're unsecured and short term. So I mean, look, in terms of if it's a business and they have a number of Airbnbs under there, and they wanted money for, let's say, some renovations or something like that, then that's probably quite possible. But to purchase the actual property, then yeah, I wouldn't bring it to us. I mean, ultimately, you want to go to a bank or a secure lender for that.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Now, guys, it's always been, I suppose, a big question that's thrown around with brokers. Exit plans are something that, as lenders, we all need, or I should say you all need. So when we talk exit plans, what are some of the things you're looking for a broker to have within their exit plan? Benny, I'll start with you.
To be honest, we don't really look in exit plans. I mean, for us, like we're a short-term lender, so our maximum term is 3 years. But the thing is, like with Prosper, we obviously want to probably try and keep them on our book for as long as possible, because ultimately what we find is that most businesses will typically need funding at least once or twice a year. So when we actually fund a business initially, for whatever reason, let it be working capital or equipment, whatever the case may be, they will typically come back to us at least once a year for all sorts of different things. So it's not really something that we look at. But if a customer wanted to pay us out and get out of their loan, they can pretty much do that anytime. So on our small business loan, the way that works is, let's say we set up a 12-month term, let's just say that's for SMSs, and they wanted to pay out within 6 months. So all they would need to do is actually pay out their remaining principal and a 1.5% early payout fee on that remaining principal. So it's a really, really cheap way of doing it, really great way of saving interest. The other product we have is a line of credit. So this line of credit that we've got is quite unique in our space. It's literally, they can go in and out as many times as they like. They pay out the line of credit, they don't get charged anything. So it's not really something we really look at, but it's possible.
Fantastic. Jackie, from Bluestone side of things, what are the key things you're looking for in an exit plan from a client?
Well, obviously we want once they're over 45, assuming the retirement age is 70, we will consider a 30-year loan term as long as it doesn't exceed to the age of 90. But we've had as long as it's, I think credit want to know that you've had the conversation with the client, downsizing potentially depending on what that looks like, downsizing, investment, super, a combination of things. Beauty is that we've accepted all three of those.
Fantastic. Cooper, from your side of things, how are we going and what are we looking for in core content from an exit plan?
Yeah, so exit's a big one for Speedy. Like I said earlier, we're looking for the loan purpose, the exit strategy, and the LVR. So security aside, if we are looking at doing a loan for someone, a strong exit obviously being, you know, sale of goods or sale of property, things like that. So we set our facilities up as interest only. So, you know, you pay interest only, whether it's capitalized or not capitalized, and then you have an exit at end point being in between that first month to the 18 months. We do also consider if a client is more cash flow based and they're not looking, they don't have a strong exit, they want more, you know, a P&I type facility. What that means is we set that up with an interest only product, and then anything they pay above that interest only amount each month just pays the principal down on the loan. So only then we would look at banking, but if it's got a strong exit, we don't really need the banking.
Fantastic. And Surinder, are you looking for exit plans from people once you do that trail loan for them?
No. So firstly, Jackie, I'd have to give you an exit plan now. That means I'm getting old. So all of our loans, Leah, are 5 years principal and interest. So an exit strategy doesn't apply to us because it's going to get paid down over a short amortized time frame anyway.
Fantastic. I like a short and sharp answer on that one. Jackie, I want to come up to you for a second on this one. If somebody has got a small default, let's say less than $1,000 on their credit file, in today's lending environment, would Bluestone still consider lending to them?
Yeah, so in our prime space, under 500 we'll still accept. So it's got to be under 500. But look, no matter if it's $1,000, it would be near prime. However, no matter what the dollar amount, over 24 months, we could consider that in near prime. 12 months old, no matter what the amount, in specialist. So that we have 4 products. So there's a fit for any of your clients.
And is that 500 in the totality, or are we saying?
Totality, like that's it. Totality in our prime. And it's got to be
perfect. Perfect. Benny, from Prosper's side of things, will you guys consider lending to businesses that do have minor defaults?
Yes, absolutely. So we're what you call a risk lender, if you want to call us that. So we look at the strengths of the business. So more the strengths the merrier. But if there are little things there that you know, maybe pay default or telco default or something along those lines, right? That's usually okay as long as the rest of the business strength's okay. But obviously, because we're a rate and pricing for risk, that customer will get, you know, obviously priced for that risk element. Make sense?
Perfect. People, from your side, Coops, can you look at people that do have defaults?
Yeah, definitely. We do look at people that have defaults. The only time that we won't lend is when it's another finance company default. That's the only thing we're looking for. We're not looking for scores or anything like that, but yeah, just that.
Yep, perfect. And guys, I'm going to head into a couple of things. Surinder, with Trailbook loans, what's the average turnaround for somebody who has applied to you that does want to have a look at getting a loan against their Trailbook?
Yeah, Leah, so provided it fits all of the policy parameters and we get all of the information, be amazed how many times we get 11-month statements rather than 12. Once we receive everything, we're probably sort of 3 weeks beginning to end, being cash in the bank. And just to cover back on the default part of it, we will consider defaults. However, obviously for mortgage brokers with a default, it has a different sway to it. So the rule that we implemented just before COVID hit was an average score of 500 between the directors and the company. And then we don't really consider the default so much. But I mean, at the end of the day, if a broker's got a finance company default, they're probably not going to have an industry accreditation.
Perfect. And so guys, the last question I do want to ask everybody is, have you got any feedback from your credit teams where brokers could improve their loan submissions? Benny, I'll start with you.
To be honest, not really, because we have things so simple. I mean, look, we basically do the work for you. So in terms of actually submitting that application, we actually get that. One of my lending specialists will do that on your behalf with your customers. So every single time, you know, the application is going to be good. But what I would say from a broker perspective is what would help is that when we're discussing a scenario, try and get as much information around the business as possible. You know, type of industry, how long they've been trading for, are they asset backed? If you know, if they do have any credit issues behind the scenes that we need to be aware of, so we can try and build a case, get around them if need be. ATO debt, if they have ATO debt, how much, if they're on a payment plan. that sort of information can really help us set the right expectation with you on the phone. And also, it's great information that we can obviously put an application to strengthen it along the line. So that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. Jackie, anything from your credit team?
Yeah, look, you get the odd couple here and there, but look, generally speaking, I think we're in a world now that brokers are, well, how regulated that we are now. I've got some beautifully submitted loans that have come through, submitted on a Monday because we had everything perfectly. We ordered Val up front, formal approval by Thursday, COB, perfectly put through. And if there are any ones that get flagged, it comes back to the BDM, and it's me spending time with you, assisting on processes, because I get it, you guys are dealing with so many other lenders and everyone does things differently, so it does come back on me, and that's where it's a training piece and to assist you so that then, try to get it right the first time, but if it doesn't happen, just the second time, definitely.
Fantastic. Surinder, from your credit side of things, any other feedback from your teams as to how these deals can be better put together?
Yeah, again, we've tried to be really, really user-friendly. So we've gone completely online with the application process. And the only thing I'd say to brokers is once you get to the end of the application process, there is a link for document uploads. The link is dynamic. So if there's a checkbox to upload something, upload it because it's needed. If you haven't got it, call me.
Well and truly, good advice there, Surinder, good advice. Cooper, last but not least this morning, is there any advice you can give us on the submissions coming through?
Yeah, so with Speedy, it's pretty easy for us. A quick, jump on the phone with myself and with the property address and the scenario, and we can pretty much have a yes or no for you. In terms of any changes or anything like that, because we're dealing in the property space, a big one that we're seeing is, brokers will be submitting a deal where the client's saying the house is worth $1 million and they only bought it 2 months ago for 600,000. So it's just doing a little bit of due diligence on the property up front, but apart from that, that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. Guys, I do want to thank you all for your time this morning, knowing that we have gone a little bit over for this particular session. It wouldn't be me if I didn't go over time, let's be honest. But I do want to thank you all. New South Wales, you guys are in lockdown down there, and I hope that everybody is keeping their spirits high. As we said, and Nick said before, things to consider while you're sitting there behind the screen as well is do make sure that you are stretching your back and stretching your shoulders. And it's simple things, literally what Nicolette was saying the other day, scrunch your shoulders up and drop them down. Nico's having a bit of a stretch over there, but scrunching them up, Ben's now cracking his neck, which I don't recommend doing if you're not a trained chiropractor. But do make sure that you are stretching, because the worst thing is now that we are spending so much time behind the screen is we do get very lax sitting with our neck and our shoulders. But have a fantastic Friday. It is Poets Day, guys. So I hope everything is okay. Sydney, hang in there. I know you've got 2 weeks ahead of you, and it's going to probably be a very long 2 weeks down there. Hopefully this morning there's not too many changes that are coming through. I've got my second screen happening at the moment, waiting for all the media from around the country. So stay safe. If you need anything at all, please reach out and let us know, and I'll hand you back to Nick.
Thanks, Leah. All right, guys. Next up, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Rebekah Smith from Smith & Wellness, who will be talking about practical strategies for stress reduction. Perfect, just what we need right now. Beck Smith is a TEDx speaker and an expert in mental fitness who consults to organisations on ways to reduce stress, prevent burnout, improve communication, and optimize team culture. She's a former physiotherapist with a background in psychology who also teaches dance and yoga classes when she isn't working as a positive psychology coach. As someone who has recovered from burnout and mental illness herself, Beck uses her personal experiences as well as her professional knowledge to help others optimize their lives. So welcome to Beck.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, and welcome everybody. I'm Beck. I'm currently sitting in cold, chilly Adelaide, and I would like to acknowledge that I'm on Kaurna country where I am. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land because their connection to the waters and the lands of the Adelaide Plains region is just as important to living Aboriginal people today as it has been for thousands of years before. So I want to acknowledge the elders, past, present and emerging, and the spiritual, emotional and physical connection that they have to Adelaide Plains region. Wherever you are joining me from today, I hope that you are well, and thanks for connecting in. Today's session is going to be around some mental fitness strategies that you can take to manage stress. Originally, I had talked about this session being a stress reduction session. However, reducing stress is not always possible, as I'm sure many of you can attest to. So what can we do to better manage it so that it doesn't impact us as much? That's going to be the focus of this session. I'm going to give you a brain hack for managing stress better and also a body hack for managing stress better. And these two different strategies are things that you can do in combination and share with other people as well. So thank you for being here, and let's get into it. Most of the work that I do is around investigating the cogs that are going on in our brain. A lot of people don't necessarily know what's underneath the surface, so these cogs can sometimes look a little bit like this. We're not necessarily aware of all of our thinking processes and what's going on in our brain. There is a lot of subconscious activity happening a lot of the time, and this is often what leads to stress. We may not even be aware of what is stressing us out, which is why sometimes some clever hacks for body and brain can be useful for getting under the hood, so to speak, and being able to manage that stress a lot better. The three different areas that I speak to when I'm talking about building our mental fitness, it's a little bit like going to the brain gym, working on our strength, working on our flexibility, and working on our endurance with different types of exercises. So I'm going to give you some more context around strength, flexibility, and endurance toward the end of the session. But I want to start by actually talking about some of the things that get in the way of our cogs turning properly. So here on the screen that you're seeing at the moment, and you're welcome to take a photo of this if this helps you, these are some factors that get in the way of our mental fitness. So you can see that on the left of the diagram, there are some things that make us mentally more fragile. On the right, things that make us mentally rigid. And down toward the bottom, things that zap our mental energy and make us more lethargic. So the few things that I'm going to be talking about today, we're going to cover as we go, but emotional reactivity is one that can come up a lot for me personally, particularly when I'm stressed. So that's where we're going to start. Now, in terms of emotional reactivity, and when we start to have a reaction to something that happens in our lives and it stresses us out, one of the common problems is that when a stimulus or a situation happens and leads to some kind of emotional response, we think that that's the end of the story. So I'm going to unpack what we call the STR model for you today. And STR stands for stimulus, thought, response. Because most of us think that, well, of course I got angry because this happened, we tend to make that quick jump from the stimulus to the response. But many of us forget that there's this thinking part in the middle. So what you're going to see on your screen at the moment is that in between the stimulus and the response, there's this gap. And this is where our thoughts occur. Now, those thoughts may be an accurate representation of what has happened, but they may not be accurate either. And the stimulus that has caused a thought could have happened from outside of us. So it could have been an event has occurred. Somebody has knocked over the glass of milk. Or that stimulus could have been more of an internal event. It could have been a sensation that we've had in our body that stresses us out, a pain of some sort, or even a thought that then leads to another thought. Now, once we get into that thought space of looking, well, are these thoughts accurate or not? It leads to this response, which could be an emotional response or it could be a behavioural response. So if something has happened in your workday, in your family life, in your friendships, that has triggered some kind of emotion in you, that might be something that you hold inside and you don't express, or it might be an emotional response that then also comes out in your behaviour. You might get snappy, you might cry, you might yell. And so you can have an emotional response and a behavioural response. they're not always observable. They're not always seen by other people as well. So this is very much about looking inside of you and starting to analyse, okay, when I'm stressed out, when a situation happens that has stressed me out, what are the thoughts that have led me to this? So I'm going to give you an example. The last time I was travelling to Melbourne, which was pre-COVID, back in the days of free travel, I was on a flight and there was a flight attendant that came along and asked us what we would like to drink. I asked for a cup of tea and the two people next to me asked for orange juice. When she started pulling stuff out of the drinks cart, she handed the two passengers next to me their juice and I was waiting for my tea. Now that wasn't so problematic. I thought, okay, that's fine. The hot drinks are coming last. Then the cart moved back to the aisle behind me and still didn't have my cup of tea. I thought, oh, that's okay. Just waiting, just waiting. And then the cart moved further along. I thought, oh, I wonder if they're waiting for hot water. Maybe they're out of boiling water and it's just taking a little while. And my tea didn't come. Now, I started to get frustrated at this point. And the flight attendant who had been serving me, whose name was Pam, I started to create some thoughts about her and started to have a response in my body, which was muscular tension. My heart rate actually started to go a little bit faster because I was frustrated and I just wanted my cup of tea, damn it. So in the slide that's coming up now, you can see that the stimulus thought response model is also paired with this kind of thinking that if this happens, then I think this. So for instance, in this situation with Pam, the flight attendant, if Pam doesn't bring me my tea, then I start to think Pam is forgetful, Pam is useless, Pam's a cow, Pam should have brought me my tea, right? So a lot of the time when there's frustration involved, we often have an idea of what should have happened rather than what is happening right there. And so once I've had those thoughts, then it leads to this response around I'm angry and I'm frustrated. Now, in this moment, I had to reflect that ironically, I was flying to Melbourne to teach this kind of content around managing our thoughts, managing our stress, and calming ourselves down in frustrating situations. So I was actually able to ask myself, what would I tell somebody else in this situation? And I started to change the thought patterns that I had. And this is when we start to become more practiced at using the STR model, it becomes more automated for us. It's a really great way of starting to channel our thoughts toward things that are more productive for us rather than unproductive for us. So in this instance, I was able to change my if-then thinking to more, well, what if thinking? Or what if this is going on instead? Or what if that is going on instead? So when you start to open up to different possibilities, rather than just thinking about what should happen, you start to get a little bit more expansive around what might be happening or what could be happening, then you start to feel different. So in this instance, I started to ask myself, okay, what if I change my thoughts and ask some questions? What if Pam is sick? What if she's forgotten me today because she's really stressed? What could possibly be going on for her? And then the feeling is not so much anger and frustration anymore. My response becomes I'm less stressed and I actually feel more compassionate and I actually feel a bit more caring toward this woman who's forgotten my tea. So it's just a small example, but think about how many times in your day you might have these little stress triggers and how much that can accumulate over the course of the day. First thing in the morning, you kind of something might go wrong at home. The cat's bowl gets knocked over and water goes everywhere. Oh, that's just a little stress. And then you leave the house and then you get in the car and realise you've forgotten your lunch. And then somebody makes a comment in the office that just rubs you up the wrong way. And these little things can accumulate during the day so that by the end of the day, you're going, oh, this was terrible. The whole day was just awful. But if we could actually start to stop in the moment that we're starting to have these thoughts and go, all right, is the thought or the belief that I've got about this situation accurate? Is the thought or belief that I'm having right now productive for me? And can I change my thinking? Instead of going, if this happens, then I feel this. What if? How could we open ourselves up to different possibilities? So how many examples can you think of where you could possibly transform a should into a could? So on that day, Pam maybe should have got me my tea, but she didn't. So just in thinking, well, Pam could have got me my tea, but it didn't happen. Then I started to open myself up to possibilities. So as you can see in the image on your screen, instead of being lost in the maze of my thinking, I was actually able to elevate myself to a perspective where I could see the thoughts that I was having from a different lens, from a different viewpoint. And from that viewpoint, I could go, this is a much better pathway for me to take. So I didn't get my tea. What else could I do about that? So the next flight attendant that came along, I flagged her down and I said, could I possibly get a cup of tea? And she went, no problems, let me go get that for you. And she did. So I think the old version of me could have sat there, not asked for what I needed, stewed on it, actually stayed with that little bit of resentment and frustration. So how many times in a day do we do that? And the next time you have one of those instances in your day where you're getting frustrated, where you're getting lost in the shoulds, how can you open yourself up to what if thinking? How can you start to see in your mind's eye that model of STR and come back to that thought space and steer your thinking towards something that's more productive for you? So that's the brain hack that I wanted to share with you today. And I hope that those visuals and some of that perspective is really, really useful for helping to shape some of the small stresses that happen day to day. Now, a common question that I get asked at this point is, but what if I can't change my thinking about something? What if I know that my thoughts are accurate and I know that I'm right and I'm still feeling frustrated? Well, then you might need to use a different strategy. So the tools that I teach in mental fitness, the exercises that I give for people to improve their strength and their flexibility and their endurance, it's a little bit like a repertoire of different exercises that you use at different times when you need to. You wouldn't use a flexibility exercise if you were trying to improve your strength and vice versa. It's like a toolkit. You're not going to be using a hammer when actually you need a screwdriver. So STR is one of those exercises or one of those tools in your toolkit that you can use when maybe that little shift in thinking can be useful to give you a more productive response. However, it's not necessarily always going to be the most useful strategy. So this is where I'm going to now change and start talking about a body hack that we can start to use and give you some context around how our brain connects into our bodies. So what you're seeing on your screen at the moment is a model called the Triune Brain. And this is based on evolutionary biology. So the theory goes that as we evolved a long time, that we first started with this very primal brain, what you'll see on your screen as red at the moment. So some people refer to this as the reptile brain or the lizard brain. It's very much concerned with our safety and our survival. It regulates all of our physical body processes, like it helps us to regulate our body heat. It will send signals to us to let us know if we're thirsty and need water, if we're hungry and we need food, if we are feeling too cold or hot, need shelter, etc. Now, it's also responsible for telling us if there's a threat in our environment that might be a predator of some sort. So this red part of the brain is all about giving you danger signals so that you can stay safe and do what you need to do to protect yourself. The blue part of the brain is sometimes called the mammal brain. Sometimes we refer to this as the emotional or the limbic system. You might have heard about the limbic system being referred to in the brain. As mammals evolved on from reptiles, they started to become more social creatures. And we're one of those mammals. We are connected to other human beings and feeling a sense of belonging, feeling that other people care about us, feeling that we are connected, that we're loved, is the most important thing to this blue part of the brain. So if we are connected to our tribe, it meant that we were in kind of caveman and cavewoman days, much more likely to survive. And so the blue and the red part of our brain communicate in order to protect us. And this blue part is more about social protection and how well am I connected. The green part of the brain is what you're going to be using when you are making decisions, problem solving, and it's referred to as the executive part of the brain. You may have heard it being spoken about before as the prefrontal cortex, and this is where all of the logical stuff happens. Now, The thing about these three developmental areas is that the brain and the body will put priority on survival before it puts priority on logic and other decision making. So what happens if we're in a stressed state is that the green part of our brain kind of goes offline and doesn't want to work for us anymore. So if we're having an emotional response to something that starts to hijack our thinking, even if we want to calm ourselves down, even if we want to be able to concentrate, even if we want to be able to do our best work, we can't, because the blue and the red part of our brain have hijacked us. Now, if you're in a constant state of stress, it means that you're not going to be able to think clearly through anything that you need to do. So actually managing our stress is a really important thing, not just from the perspective of staying healthy and happy and calm, but actually just getting stuff done, being the most productive version of ourselves that we can. So with these three centers in mind, I'm going to introduce you to this concept called the negativity bias. Now, this is another evolutionary biology idea. The negativity bias is the tendency of the brain to only look at the bad things, as you can see on the cartoon on your screen. So the rest of you might be going, oh, look at this beautiful, amazing experience. Look at, oh, these beautiful people in my life. But your brain will just want to steer back to, no, this is problematic. The reason that it happens is, again, because it kept us safe to focus on problems. So if you imagine as a caveman or a cavewoman that you're walking along and you hear a rustle in the grass, it really does serve your survival needs if you pay attention to that, right? And think, oh my gosh, it could be a predator. I need to act and get away from him now. Whereas if you didn't have a negativity bias and if you were just kind of like, oh, I wonder what that is, let's be curious and let's go and explore it, then you might get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So the negativity bias evolved. Well, natural selection really kind of kept selecting people who had more anxious brains because they were the ones who were on more of a lookout for danger. So what it means is that we have this kind of evolutionary hangover where even if great stuff is happening for us, even if we have everything that we need, even if we are surrounded by people that we love, even if we're having a myriad of positive experiences and great interactions, your brain will still want to look at the problems and go, oh, yeah, but I still don't have the car that I want, or I still haven't hit my goal, or I still don't have enough of this. And so a lot of us can slip into negative patterns of thinking and think that then there's something wrong with us. A lot of people find that it's actually hard to practice gratitude because of this negativity bias. But when I first found out that we have a natural negativity bias in our brain, I was so relieved. I thought for the first time, oh my gosh, I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. This is great, because your brain will actually put about 5 to 6 times more emphasis on negative information than it does on positive information. And that's just a natural human condition. But the body hack that I'm going to teach you today is about how can we rewire that so that we can appreciate the good things in our life and leverage from the positive emotion that it brings. What I'm introducing on the screen now are these 2 different pathways in our nervous system. So in the middle, you can see the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain and spine. Coming off of that, you have the autonomic nervous system, which has these 2 different branches. So roughly we can split the autonomic nervous system into the parasympathetic, which you can see in purple, and the sympathetic nervous system in green. The parasympathetic being about rest and restoration and healing your system. This will kick in when you're in a positive frame of mind, and it will kick in when you're in a calm state. Whereas the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system, is all about I need to mobilize. I either need to get away from danger or I need to fight danger off. So this is what is going to kick in when you are stressed. So what happens with these different regions of the brain is if the red or the blue part of your brain is detecting some kind of physical or social threat, it will then send signals into the fight and flight system to activate stuff in your body, increasing your heart rate, making you breathe faster so you can get oxygen in to run or fight. It starts to have an impact on your pupils, dilating your pupils so that you can see better. And it also starts to bring blood flow toward your muscles in your arms and legs so that you can activate your body. And it takes blood flow away from your organ systems. Now, this has a negative impact on our health over time, which is why stress actually has an important role in the development of diabetes and cardiovascular disease and other disease processes. So it's really important to start to regulate and learn how to regulate our nervous system so that we can actually get that healing and blood flow that we need into our organ systems to keep us physiologically as well as mentally healthy. I sometimes describe the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system in terms of a brake and an accelerator in your body. So the parasympathetic being that brake that slows everything down and allows the rest and the restoration to occur, and the sympathetic nervous system, that fight and flight accelerator being, all right, everything switch on. The relevance of this is that over the last few years, there's been more and more research done in the topic of heart rate variability. When we look at the heart rate, it gives us an indication as to whether the sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system is more dominant at any one time. In other words, are you using your accelerator more or using your brake more? Because ultimately, just like a car, the vehicle of your body will not function well if you're trying to use one or the other. It actually needs both. So we need to have a balance between that brake and accelerator. I'm going to bring up a diagram now that shows some heart rhythm patterns. On the screen, what you're seeing is not just an indication of heart rate, which is how fast your heart is going, but it's an indication of whether it's going faster or slower. So when the line is going up, that's when your heart rate is accelerating. The sympathetic nervous system is kicking in. And when the line is going down, that's when you are starting to slow down. That's the parasympathetic nervous system kicking in. So the brake and the accelerator on the top part of the diagram here in red is fluctuating in a bit more of a haphazard way. It's kind of like, oh, I'm slowing down, no, I'm speeding up, I'm slowing down, no, and it's a bit all over the place. This is what happens when we are in a frustrated or anxious or worried kind of emotional state. The sympathetic nervous system kicks in, that red part of the brain starts to send signals into your autonomic nervous system, and this is what happens with our heart rate variability. However, in the bottom part of the diagram, you'll see what we call nervous system coherence, which is where the brake and the accelerator are fluctuating nice and smoothly. If you think about driving your car, it's not a great idea to be stomping on both pedals at the same time or haphazardly going on and off of them. It's going to wear out your vehicle and lead to a very bumpy and unsafe ride. And it's the same with our body. So if we can just smoothly come off of the brake to then activate the accelerator and then slowly come off the accelerator to put the brake on, that is a much smoother trip and it's much safer for us, which is what we want to see in our nervous system patterns as well. And this is what is elicited in your body when you start to have more experiences of positive emotion. Now, this is something that you can start to instigate and you can choose for yourself by practicing positive emotion, a little bit like you're rewiring that negativity bias. So in that little section down the bottom of the screen at the moment, you'll see that this is what we often see when people are experiencing appreciation, care, love, gratitude. So a little body hack that you can use to shift your heart rhythm patterns from what looks very stressful to that more coherent pattern is a 3-part system that the Heart Math Institute has researched, which is called heart-based appreciation. So the body hack that I want to share with you today, these 3 steps are, first of all, and you can do it with me right now, slow down your breathing as the first of 3 steps. So take a deeper breath than you normally would and breathe out slowly, maybe even longer than your inhalation. Now, I know that deep breathing gets talked about a lot, and it probably, people will talk about, oh, just take a breath, which can kind of sound very dismissive, but actually what you're doing when you slow down your breathing is really important. What's happening is you are activating the parasympathetic nervous system and actually hacking your brain and sending signals into that red part of your brain that everything is okay. If you're running away from a predator, there's no way you're going to be breathing this slowly. So this is sending a subconscious signal into those parts of the brain to say it's okay. We don't have to go into survival mode. We can actually transcend survival mode and go into logical thinking mode. Now, the second step around this, once you've slowed down your breathing, is to think about your rib cage or your lungs or your heart and visualize where that breathing is coming from. So bring focus into your body's sensations. Just take a few seconds now, maybe close your eyes if you want to, and focus in on your heart. Maybe even visualize it's beating. Can you feel it speeding up? Could you feel it slowing down? Now, what you're doing with that second step, is it's very part of your limbic system to calm down your emotions. The insula is responsible for something called interoception, which is our internal body's systems starting to get an internal sensation of our body. So not just the sensations of the nerves of, our arms and our legs, but the nerves that are telling us what's going on within our internal body. That then is starting to itself have these connections into that mammal brain to say, hey, you can calm down as well. The third part is around bringing in the green part of your brain and actually starting to think more about what can you see right now that is good in your world. So starting to think now as the third step, what is something that you appreciate in your life? Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a pet, maybe it's a happy memory, and call that to mind. Bring in that green part of your brain, the logical executive part, in a positive way. And as you're breathing, imagine that you are now bringing gratitude in as you breathe in. Heart rate might be speeding up a little. And then breathe out and send that appreciation outwards. So training your brain to look for the positives and to start to practice feeling appreciation is that important third step. We also know, as a quick little tip here from neuroscience, that it takes about 17 seconds for these patterns to shift and for different neurochemicals to start flooding your system when you shift into a positive state. So if you think a happy thought, if you think about something you're grateful for, don't just hang on to it for 3 seconds and then move on to the next stressful thought. See if you can savor that moment for 17 seconds or more. So if you can sit in a feeling of gratitude for about 20 seconds, then you really start to see some physiological as well as psychological shifts. It starts to change the way that your dopamine and your serotonin is acting in your brain and starts to shift your cardiovascular and other rhythms and nervous system activation through your body as well. So those 3 steps in summary again: slow down your breathing, start to think about your internal body and feel that, and then start to shift your thinking into something of appreciation and gratitude. So that little body hack there is going to have a significant impact on managing your stress. And it might be something that you just do in one breath. It might be something you do in between client meetings. It might be something that you do in the car, on the train, on the way home. It might just be something you do in the shower. So see if you can integrate it, whether it's for 1 breath or 50, sometime during your day. The more frequently you do it, then the more likely you are to be able to rewire that negativity bias in your brain to be able to appreciate what's good in your world and reduce that stress response, both for the benefit of your body and your mind. Here are some other little hacks that I want to share with you, some positivity tips. So one thing that I teach, and I'm talking to a group soon about this, is around keeping a done list. So instead of just having a to-do list of, oh, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, keep a done list. So keep that list of going, this is what I've accomplished. Because when you feel a sense of achievement in your day, it increases the amount of dopamine in your brain and actually makes you more motivated to want to do more. Another positivity tip is to celebrate strengths. So when you're looking at somebody, and even if there's somebody who's frustrating you, think about what strengths they're showing. I know I've got somebody in my life who sometimes really frustrates me because she is so blunt to the point where sometimes I think, oh my God, you're so rude. But when I think about her in terms of, do you know what? She has a real strength in honesty. I can start to see that through a different lens, and I start to see that not as problematic, but I see it as a strength instead of a weakness. And it doesn't just help my relationship with her, it may not even make any impact on her, but it changes the way that I feel about that interaction. And then the third tip is expressing appreciation. So once you have felt something that you appreciate, share it with somebody, especially directly with the person. If you are feeling appreciation for them, tell them how grateful you are for them. Say thank you. Tell them that you've noticed something that they've done. And in that sharing, there's a huge influx of positive emotions, positive neurochemicals, positive hormones that come into your body, as well as for that other person. So give it a go. Express appreciation to somebody today. So a question that I would like to leave you with as we wrap up this presentation today is, what could change in your work life or even in your personal life if you were to improve one aspect of your mental fitness? So what would happen if you started to become practiced at that STR model and starting to shift your unproductive thoughts to productive thoughts? What could shift if you started to use that body hack of that heart-based appreciation breathing? Or indeed, coming up on your screen right now, there's a slide which shows a range of different mental fitness exercises that you can take. So in terms of building our mental strength, starting to focus on character strengths, like I talked about, instead of just thinking, oh, somebody's really blunt and rude, start to think about it in terms of their strength of honesty. And start to think about, what are your strengths that you bring out in your behaviour every day? Awareness. So STR is really one of those skills that helps us to become more aware of what's going on in our internal processing and communicate that better. Authenticity, which is about being less fake and keeping things a bit more real and expressing a true side of yourself. Mental flexibility, which is about practicing creative thinking, innovation and problem solving. Letting go of perfectionism and starting to practice self-compassion as well as compassion toward others. And another flexibility exercise, which is letting go of doubt and starting to trust more. Or what might change in your life if you started to let go of being mentally lethargic and started to build your mental energy and endurance by living into your values and what's really important to you. Letting go of being exhausted and busy all the time and actually practicing some stillness, even if it's just in little microdoses. Or what would shift if you started to get control of your fear and started to practice more emotional mastery and started to use the power of your emotions instead of trying to repress them? So these are the 9 topic areas around mental fitness that I teach. Different exercises for each of those topics as well. And if you'd like to find out more about them, you can go to this website, which is up on your screen at the moment, which is smithandwellness.com/resources. There is a TEDx talk there that I've done on mental fitness. There's some YouTube vlogs on there that you can check out. And also there's an online course which takes you through those 9 different topic areas one by one that you can explore in your own time. Now, a couple of questions that often come up at this stage. A lot of people ask me around mindfulness and meditation. So one thing that I want to suggest is that actually in that whole arena around stillness, meditation and mindfulness are some of the things that I teach. And there is a lot of research to support that when you start to practice mindfulness, even if it's broken down into very small segments during your day, you don't have to sit for 30 minutes or an hour for mindfulness or meditation to make an impact. You can break it into smaller components, and it actually makes a huge difference, not only to your experience, but it's been shown through MRI studies that it increases the grey matter and the white matter in your brain. It actually helps your processing. So there's a really great app that I use called Insight Timer. A lot of people go, oh, are there apps that I should use? Is there a YouTube video that I should go to? I love Insight Timer. So for those people who are wondering what a good meditation and mindfulness resource is, go and check that out. It's downloadable on your phone, and you can actually put in a time to say, look, I've only got 5 minutes, or I've only got 3 minutes. Give me a meditation that I can do in a short amount of time, or it has longer meditations that it can take you through as well. So for those people who are wondering, yes, mindfulness is a very useful strategy for building your mental fitness, and Insight Timer is a great resource that you can use. And that other question, which I touched on before around, well, what if this isn't going to be useful for me in a particular situation? Use this mental fitness model like a little bit of a toolkit. So you can select one part that might be useful today. You can select 3 parts, and tomorrow you might find that you need something else. So you can also use it as a bit of a self-assessment to go, what do I need right now? So I hope that this session has been useful for you today, as giving you some concrete and practical strategies for managing your stress. As I said earlier in the session, please feel free to share it with other people as well. Talk about these strategies in your family, share it with your friends, because the more people who understand some of these little mental fitness hacks, then the healthier we are all going to be together. So enjoy the rest of your eSummit. Good luck, go well, take care, and stay in touch with me online. If you have any questions following the session that come up for you, please feel free to get in touch with the FBAA and they can pass that on to me, or you can also get in touch with me on the website via your screen. So thank you again. Go well, take care. Bye for now.
Wow, pretty powerful stuff. I'm a big fan of Insight Time. I've got over 600 hours logged on that, so definitely go and check that out, guys. It's a very powerful tool to help you reduce stress during the day. All right, moving on to the next segment. I'd like to welcome Peter McHale from ALI Group. Peter will be presenting on how major life events influence the purchase of personal insurance today. As I said, Peter's from ALI Group, and welcome to the stage, mate.
Great, thanks a lot, Nick. Not sure if I'm going to get my preso up. If not, that's fine. I've got it printed out here. Hi, everybody. Hope all is well. Obviously, most of us are all in the same boat. So I'll just quickly take you through today just what are the life events that we find affect people when they come to buy personal insurance. So our mission statement, you might have heard it from myself before, is we're sort of in the market to protect home and property buyers from financial hardship. So that hasn't changed. There's six top things where affects people. We find that when one of these six occur, people tend to sort of go out or start thinking about getting personal life insurance. I'll quickly run through the six. So the six are, having children, buying a home, financial change, marriage, death of a relative, or a friend's life event. Obviously, majority of them we don't have control over, but what we do have control over and what is obviously very relevant to us is the buying a home. So we find that when someone is buying a home, now whether a previous friend has told them, make sure you get protection, or the brokers educated them, but it's something that gets them sort of thinking. Now, there's three ways that they can go and purchase that personal insurance. One is, inbound phone calls. You've got, your real life insurance and all those other companies that advertise on TV. They can go online, or obviously they can go out and discuss it with their mortgage broker. Now, we find a lot of customers don't actually know that the mortgage broker can offer them this product. So it's about the mortgage broker initiating the conversation and saying to the customer, well, I'm going to, run you through your home loan. I'll tell you interest rates and the best product for you and whatever the case may be. But I also want to take out the time to discuss how you're going to sort of cover that risk if something was to happen. It's all, hopefully it's all hunky-dory for the next, 15, 20, 30 years of you paying down your home loan. But what happens if something was to occur after year 1, year 2, year 3, or whatever the case may be? So partnering with us allows you to have that conversation. So one question that I sort of want to pose, I don't want answers, just between yourselves, is if you're writing a mortgage for a customer, what protection conversation are you having with them? If you're referring them to a financial planner, that's great, but are you having that conversation? And if you're not, is it because you don't have, you're not using someone, or it just has never sort of crossed your mind? So please reach out. If you'll get my contact details, but please reach out if you are interested. One statistic that we have, or we surveyed, I think it was in December last year, about 1,000 of our customers one statistic that sort of stood out is about 70% said they were interested in the idea of insurance when it was first raised with their broker. So don't ever sort of think, you know, I get a few customers who say, you know, oh, I'm scared that I'm going to lose the home loan deal if I talk to them about protection. You will never, ever lose the home loan deal. If anything, you're actually showing the customer that you actually care about them, and you're not just doing a transactional sort of account with them where, you know, you're just writing the home loan and you know, and you're moving on to the next one. You're actually showing that you care about them, and, you know, yeah, I'm providing you your mortgages and that's what you came in for, but I'm also wanting to make sure that, you know, that if anything was to happen, you don't knock on my door and say, hey, listen, I can't afford my loan repayments. What do I do now? Do I need to sort of, you know, sell my house? So brokers are key. You know, we find back in the day, I think we trialed it about 5-6 years ago, where a particular aggregator were flicking their customers like a tick and flick, and then someone from our call center would give that customer a call and try and you know, sell our product, which is called MPP, My Protection Plan, to them. It never worked. It's one of these questions where it's one of these products where it's an emotional conversation with the customer. You're saying to them, I'm giving you this money. What is your plan B if something was to happen? And they're coming to see you as a mortgage broker for a reason. Hence why they're not going to, you know, to go see a bank, which is just a transactional sort of account. They're coming to see you for a reason. So as long as you guys, you know, obviously giving them their product, what they're in there for, I think it's also sort of vitally important that you educate them about what is their plan B, because for a lot of them, they haven't even thought about what their plan B is going to be. Now, we've been around for a while. For those who are accredited with us, we've been around for, you know, 18 plus years, and we're pretty much all over most aggregators. And if we're not on your aggregator panel, by all means, we can do sort of an agreement between ALI and your business. But yeah, if anyone is interested in coming on board, please reach out, and I'm more than happy to run you through what the product is, what the process is. It's a really, really simple product. It's a really simple process. You're protecting yourself, protecting your business, and you're also making some decent commission off the back of it as well. So I look forward to, I think Rhonda's I'm reaching out to speak to you. By all means, no problems, Rhonda. Looking forward to having a chat. Like I said, if anyone else is interested, please give me a buzz or drop me an email once you receive my contact details. Thanks a lot, Nick.
Thanks, Peter. Very important product that ALI have in their insurance product. All right, next up, we're just running behind, so we're just going to move on to the next step. We'll hear from the FBAA Managing Director, Peter White AM, and Nigel Rausch, who's the CEO of Two Red Kites. Unfortunately, Pete can't be here live to present, as he's got some important matters to attend, advocating for the industry. So we've got an educational session that was recorded on the Victoria/Tasmania Summit for you. If you have any questions, stick them in the chat box. We'll get them over to Pete and Nigel for a swift response.
And welcome everyone again to today. Also, I do want to say thank you to Senator the Honourable Jane Hume for the opening address that she's giving, and we look forward to hearing from her not only through these sessions but also in the future as well. I'd also like to thank Nigel, who's joining us this morning. You there, Nigel?
Hey.
There you go. G'day, mate. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good, mate. Good. Thanks for joining us. Today we're looking at, I guess, the future of, or where the future is going with technology in the financial services sector and within broking businesses, and just in general where that market is treading. And I think it's very timely after coming out of the back of COVID, where we did everything digitally. It worked for some, not for everyone. And so we have a mixture of face-to-face and digital these days. But I think it'd be great to get an understanding of a few of the things that are happening now, as well as your view on where you think the future's going in regards to within technologies within businesses, and hopefully give some people some understanding directions of maybe what they should be doing in their business. So, Nigel, I might just sort of start with a bit of an opening thought, just a general thought from yourself as to where is tech at the moment? I mean, there's so much talk about blockchains and AI and all this sort of stuff. Where really is the tech space at the moment, and where do you see it going in the next, say, 5 years? Just in a broad, general sense.
Absolutely. Okay, so the tech industry is actually going crazy at the moment, as you can imagine. As you know, a year ago, you couldn't buy a webcam. That's a great example of how everything changed. People needed webcams to do Zoom calls. The same's happening with people realizing that they need to put their tech in a place that everyone can access all the time, securely, of course, instead of the old way of you need to be in the office, access this document, work on it, and then finish working on it. That was let's say the old way. Now, so tech is going that way forward, as well as we're getting a lot more of the interesting security things, like it's now actually at the point that if you're talking about blockchain, all we think about blockchain normally is dollars and cents, okay, or Bitcoin and things like that. But they're using that same type of technology for now property transfers and things like that, to track a property transfer. And you've got now a unique identifier saying this was that particular property transfer, and you can keep the chain of events of that. So there's some really interesting, and other people are using it for contract management, so that each change of a contract is recorded into the blockchain as a key, and you now know that that contract was that particular format at that moment in time, so that if someone did make a change to it in some way later, you can verify it against a blockchain, which is something that can't be changed. So,
and that's really interesting because, look, sorry, I probably should have let everybody know. Nigel is our tech expert at the FBAA, and he's doing a whole lot of software development for us on our CRM and so on. And Nigel runs a business called Two Red Kites. Now, Nigel, I've got to ask this because it's been burning me forever. Where did you get the name Two Red Kites? Tell me about how does that interrelate with technology?
Okay, so our main language that so my previous partner and we actually put a whole day aside. I don't know if anyone's started up. I've started up multiple businesses and sold them off and done all those type of things. And my business partner and I put a day aside to actually go try to pick a name. And we had our pre-SQL ideas of cloud, because we do a lot of stuff in the cloud. Our main language that we write in is called Ruby, which is red. And there was two of us, and we came up with two red for Ruby and kites because they're in the clouds. And we didn't want to have that tech stuff or tech this or tech that type company. We wanted to have something that was a little bit different. We now abbreviate. This is my new show that I've only just got, and I'm trying to go over the top, but we now call ourselves 2RK just to make it a little bit simpler for people as well. But that's where that came from, and it's a little bit unique, and hopefully people remember it. So as I say, funny name but serious business.
Very good, and I certainly remember it. And it's thank you for sharing that. That was a little impromptu, but and it's always interesting how names get developed and what's in behind. Well, I find it fascinating anyhow. Thank you, sir. Coming back to what you're saying, I was just, as you were talking before about the connecting chains of events through blockchain as such, and what that looks like as to how you get a UIP, a unique identifier, and so on with it. It's for someone like me who's been in the industry for a long time. I remember back to a thing where the land title of a property was called a chain of title. And when you transferred a property between owners, you get in settlements a stack of paper like this, just monumental stack of paper. And you had to go through line by line by line of the chain of title to validate its authenticity and legal ownership of the property and transfer the property. And it's almost like it's taken that old process that then became a Torrens title, and it all changed from there, into a digitized form of that style of thought process to validate the entire chain of history of events, that it's all good and all legal. Is that fair assumption?
Yeah, and look, we build, so probably the background here is, and I think where Peter was going before is that there's going to be some really exciting new things everyone's going to see shortly from the FBAA back-end system, which is going to be really exciting for you, which we're working on at the moment. But Two Red Kites actually do lots of building from consignment systems through to a bereavement support system, through to babysitting systems. So we've worked in so many different domains, and it's a lot of fun because of that. But one of the things that we get really worried is when someone comes to us with hey, here's something totally new, we want to do this. And there is no previous process. They don't even have a paper-based process for it. And we're going, okay, you need to at least do it in paper first, prove the concept, because paper can get changed really quickly. Okay, once you write some code and you're stuck with that, it costs money to change. So I'm a firm believer that it's really important to work out those paper-based processes first. Remember that those paper-based processes won't flow straight into web-based processes, because in a paper-based one, you might have a compulsory field like last name, but you'll still hand that form off to the next person without that last name in there. A online form is going to say, nope, you can't submit that until you put that last name in. Okay, so you have to remember those type of things, but you're now getting a lot more control over that environment. So I believe you have to watch how those things work, and then it's just a standard growth pattern for them.
Sure. And is that sort of like the first race if you're going to customize your own software? So we look at that customization process. I remember going back 10, 20 years, maybe longer, back in the very early days, if you went to a developer to customize software for you, sort of double the time frame and double the cost, and you might be getting near the mark of where it's going to land. Very different world these days, but I mean, principally, is that what you do? You take your paper process, map it out, and then build a customized software underneath that so it suits your particular business rather than a box off a shelf?
Exactly. So funny enough, like even yesterday, a client that I had that was, oops, got something popping up. Okay. A client that I had yesterday that was actually, and their company is actually called Poles and Holes. Okay, so they actually do electrical poles at construction sites, and I guess you can guess what the holes is all about. And they basically, I gave them a proposal for a custom solution because they had rewritten their original application in Access database, and they had the ability for multiple people to use it. So, and they actually got, they went, okay, I'm going to use an off-the-shelf product to do this. It can do everything we can do, and it's only going to cost me $200 a month compared to, say, $20,000 or $30,000 or $50,000 to develop it. And they actually called me yesterday and went, okay, we realized it created so much extra work for us having to try to follow somebody else's process, not our process. And I always say it's the cart pushing the horse. It's an old saying, but you know, it's a very valid thing where the cart is actually pushing the horse around instead of the horse pulling the cart. Okay, and you're being controlled by their processes, not like, let's use Salesforce as a great example there. You're controlled by their process, and if you have some specific process or workflows, you can't easily set them up yourself. And that's the big thing.
That's very much the case with the FBAA. We are with Salesforce, although we're transitioning onto your new system. And I got to admit, it's been a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you, and extraordinarily expensive. And every time you sneeze, something breaks and more costs and just.
But can we just confirm this? You're talking about Salesforce here. It sounds like you're talking about my system.
No. Your system. Well, we're not on your system yet. We're waiting to get on it. I can't wait to finish it off. So we're close to that.
It is. Salesforce is now the new SAP, and if everyone knows about SAP, if you've ever had to get an SAP, so it's the big accounting system. It's like the top end, accounting system, and you're talking. You pay $1 million for the software, and then it will be another 2 or 3 million to configure it the way that you want to use it. SAP is what was used in Queensland Health and didn't pay all the nurses and all those type of things. So that's the scenario that is now happening with Salesforce, and a lot of people are getting stuck in that situation. It's a great product, but use it for what it is, not for trying to make it into something else. So,
well, thank God we haven't spent millions, but even in my head, we've probably spent way too much on Salesforce over all these years. So I'll be happy to get out of it, let me assure you. So tell me more, let's talk about the cloud. Tell me a little bit around what online solutions and online tools, how they benefit a business and how they can be used a bit within a person's business.
Okay, well, the obvious one is Zoom. Like, don't you wish you had bought shares in January last year of Zoom? It's now worth ridiculous amounts of money. But
Afterpay was the other one I should have bought shares in.
Exactly. Tools like Zoom. Now, being a development company, we actually can work totally remote, and I can use a totally remote team if I wanted to. I could use a team that is overseas. I choose not to because I like to be part of the community and have a local development team, but it would be 5 times cheaper to use Ukraine resources or stuff like that. And one of the things that I did find is using Zoom. I think Zoom is one of those great products that everyone's jumped onto. Excuse me, I have to stop for a sec because I'm going to have to cough. So, Pete,
you do that? Well, Nigel's coughing. One of the things that we did in the FBAA is that we transitioned from everybody working in the office to, obviously in COVID, everybody had to work from home, but then we came back into a split system. And I can tell you, I'm a bit old school. I was dead set against people working from home. And then it's through COVID and we came out the back end, but I said, I'm dead set not going back to the office. So anyhow, we worked the split structure when we got back. So we had staff that, we worked 1 week in the office and 1 week from home. And we did that for, a couple of months. And then the staff turned around and asked me, well, look, what we would like to do is to work Monday and Friday from home and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office. And I said, well, that just sounds like a long weekend to me. So we cut a deal and said, well, look, so long as KPIs are met, so long as we continue to grow, I'm good with it. But if you don't, you lose the lot. So today, it has been extraordinarily successful. And we have, as Leah would be today, she's probably working from home by the looks of it. I am, although I've got to go get on an airplane soon. But we have this split arrangement. It works extremely well for a work-life balance. And I think that the way we've embraced technology, even though we got a bit of an overload last year, all that will rationalise out and balance out. So the ability for cloud solutions and improving systems so you can basically work from anywhere, I think is fantastic. And hopefully, Nigel, you've got control of the cough, mate. There's nothing worse, is there?
No, I knew it was gone. What I actually this was an interesting thing that actually was the downside of being totally remote was, and maybe this is my old school part of it, but you don't pick up on some of the verbal cues that you would in that if you see people face to face. And I found, so we actually worked on, we go back to the office 1 day a week. And that was, I call it more of a social day. I could actually say the productivity is lower on those days than it is when people work remote. but it's a good thing because we're human, we're social animals. So I think it's still an important part of it. So
I couldn't agree more. That getting together, and we're social animals, but that meeting, getting together in the office, I think is crucial to get the balance right. Because otherwise, exactly. It happens in many other areas that the pendulum swings too far the other way, and you lose that balance. Which, to me, in my philosophy, I operate here, you lose that harmonic in your life, and then nothing seems to go right. So exactly. I think it's fantastic. Go.
So just quickly on the other side of it is IM. So like Slack or I forgot the Microsoft equivalent. Yeah, I think. Teams, Microsoft Teams, okay. Those type of tools for async communication are really important so that you can send messages to a group. You might send it to a team that might be just related to one particular project. As you probably, I don't know if you know, Peter, but we're actually using Slack while we're doing this project. It's allowing your team to actually talk directly to my team so that you don't have to call every time. They can put what we call an async message in there, which might not get replied to straight away. It might not be important, but it's better that way than using all that time trying to call people all the time. So, and then having your resources online, I think that's the other important thing. And most of us do that these days with our documents and other things. So those are probably the three key things.
So tell me, where is the future going? If we said, what does 10, 20 years from now look like? Where do you think all this goes? I mean, do we wind up getting rid of the human being out of the system, or is technology real the grunt worker as such as we go forward? What are your thoughts?
AI is amazing. Like I've got friends that write software that is used in drones that fly beside the high tension lines, and they can, as the drone goes around each insulator, then it can via AI on the spot go, yep, that one needs replacing. Yep, and then it goes to the next one. And it just does things like that. So instead of you got people trying to walk on these high tension lines, which is pretty crazy stuff anyway, this is doing that automatically. So AI in data, we wouldn't have had a COVID vaccination if it hadn't been for AI, because you're talking huge amounts of data, and they push it through to basically say, here's the result we want, here's all this data, compare them, and then give us the thing. And that's what they're using AI type technologies against to do. So I actually saw one example where they're using DNA streams, and the amount of data is it's immense that we're talking about. So, and a normal processing of that just doesn't work. So that's our future in that sense. The other thing I'd say is if you've got, if you want a future thing like car parks, I reckon they're going to don't invest in car parks in the city. You'd be hoping one day that, you'd hope in the near future, you'd have the ability that your car takes you into the city, you get out, and it goes out of the city somewhere and parks in a car park outside of the city and charges itself, and then come back and gets you when you want to leave work. Okay, maybe that's a thing. I don't know, but I'm just, I'm putting silly things of like the whole city complex is going to change, and what happens in cities is going to change with the amount of people and who needs to go there and how you get there and get back. So
look, I agree with you on that. I think it'll be very interesting in the coming few decades as to what capital cities really look like
exactly
compared to where they are today.
Well, I took it.
Mate, look, we're out of time. Fascinating chatting.
Okay, no, I was going to go into another tangent, but we were out of time, so.
Yeah, we've got the end of our time for it, but we will continue this conversation another time because it's fascinating. So hopefully that was of interest to people watching and enjoyed understanding a little bit more of what's happening with technology and how you can consider using it otherwise. Nigel from Two Red Kites, thank you so much. We'll look forward to catching up with you again soon. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for this opportunity, Everyone have a great rest of your day. Stay safe.
All right, everyone. Lots of fascinating information in that one as well. Look, that brings us to a close today. Sorry, we've run a little bit late today. We hope you got a lot out of the data and information provided by the FBAA, as you know I did. Just look, as a quick mention, myself, Leah, and our state councillors are all here and available for any matters or questions regarding the FBAA. If you want to just get in contact with us via the website or any other channel, Facebook, there's a group on there as well for East Coast FBAA members. Look, before we close off the summit, just a few quick things to cover. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge all of the national sponsors again. They're up on the page. Big thank you to them for putting their time in and educating us on what they do and what can be done. Secondly, you'll get 1.5 CBD hours if you've stayed on the call. There's a short survey in the email. If you could please fill that out. As I've mentioned, that really does help out with future development of these summits. Thirdly, the FBAA National Conference. Now, this has moved from Friday the 30th of July, is no longer. It's now on the 5th of November. So please register for this. If you haven't registered, do so via the FBAA website under events. We're all looking forward to going up there. It's a few months away now, so hopefully everything's cleared up by that time, but everyone's looking forward to a bit of a blowout party at the end of the year. So the gala dinner is going to be something special. Also, we have our Q&A with Whitey every third Thursday, so please register for this. Webinars on the FBAA website. On the 19th of August will be Kirsty Dumpney from Uploans talking about how to optimize your conversation with real estate agents who are a great source of leads for most brokers. So keep an eye out for registration of this. What else have we got? There's also other webinar recordings on the FBAA YouTube channel. You can watch this and grab CPD hours or register for upcoming events. So stay tuned for that. On that, that's it for us today. So have a great day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and keep a smile on your face, drink lots of water, and do lots of stretching. All right. See you later.